Hi everyone, it's Miss Kristy from East Pennsboro Library, and today I am here with a fun springtime virtual craft idea for you. Today we're going to learn how to make rag tie wreaths. This is one that I made earlier in the month as an example, and you see it's really full, and I'll show you a couple different ways to make one. I have one started, and I'm going to start a red, white, and blue one for Memorial Day. And one of the two of those we're going to display in the library when we reopen, which, fingers crossed, maybe soon. But remember that all my programming will still be online. Oh, probably for at least another 4 months. So make sure you're always checking that online programming tab. And also you're checking our Facebook page. So let's get started with this fun project. I never made one of these until I did this one. So this is what a rag tie wreath is going to look like. And you can see it looks like a bunch of rags, but I used fabric in a wreath form. And this was hanging on my front door until I pulled it down for this program. So let's look at what supplies you're going to need. You're going to need one 12-inch wire frame wreath. Here's what I ordered, a 2-pack. We ordered a 2-pack of them off of Amazon. So you can see what that looks like. It has 4 places and some segments. This one that I originally did was the same size, but there was 6 segments rather than 5. So it's a little bit different. You're going to need 3 total yards of fabric. You can split up the yardage between different fabric colors and prints. I used 2 different fabrics on this one and just kind of went back and forth between the 2 of them. So I got 1.5 yards of each fabric. You're going to need scissors, a ruler, and a pencil. I'm going to go over the directions with you, and then I'm going to show you a couple things quickly. I'm not going to go through measuring my fabric and all that, but I'll show you what I did with some of them, because I'm sure that we all know how to measure by now. And let's take a look at the directions for this wreath. It might be a little confusing at first, but as you watch me put one together and begin one, you'll understand what all this means. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to cut your fabric into 2.5-inch by 8.5-inch strips. That was what I used for this one. And I've already done that for the one that I got started. And I'll show you exactly what I did here in a few minutes. And you're going to take one strip, fold it in half, place it under the wire, pull the ends through and tie a knot. You're going to repeat that process until the entire inner ring and one more ring is filled up. And I'll show you different variations on the rings and how you can vary your wreaths. You're going to push the knotted strips together as you work to create the full look. And then you can fluff and arrange the wreath as needed, and you can create new wreaths for each season or holiday. If you've never noticed, Miss Kristy loves crafts that you can cut wrong, screw up, or might be a little messy, because I'm certainly not trying to sell anything. And it works for the project. Nobody can tell if you might have measured one just 8 inches instead of 8.5 because of how it all comes together. All right, so let's take a look at what this project is really going to look like. This one is the one that I originally made, 1.5 yards of each of the 2 fabrics. This one has a little butterfly on it. My mother, I think, might want this one. I'll have to see. And on this one, what I did was I did the first 2 rings, the inner ring and then the next ring up, if you can see on the back there, and I left 2 rings open. Now, on the one I'm going to show you that I have started, I did my strips 2.5 inches by 8.5 inches, but of course, you know, I always try to work smarter, not harder. So I made a template out of a piece of Amazon cardboard, of course, that I could just trace around easily, and I can put the fabric and layer it and get a bunch of strips cut out all at the same time. And the second wreath I'm going to show you, I made my strips a little bit shorter, and it's going to have a little bit of a different look. It's going to kind of lay flat when it's all finished up. So what I did was I actually got squares of fabric from Amazon that are about like this. And then I got some solid colored fabric to fill in. Let me give you a hint. If you don't want to spend money for the fabric, sheets, old bed sheets. I don't know. We have tons of bed sheets at our house from when the kids were in college, and different size beds. You could cut up an old bed sheet and use that in between. As a matter of fact, for the red, white, and blue one, I'm going to use an old white bed sheet that I washed in Clorox to cut my strips out of. So use what you've got at home. You might have an old blanket you could use. They're really easy to make. So for this one, I decided what kind of pattern I wanted to do. And I cut all my pieces of fabric and I laid them into piles. Orange and yellow are my main colors. And then I have a variation of all different kinds of strips that I cut out to fill in some color in the wreath. I started here in the back, and on this one, I did the inner ring, and then I did the next to the outside ring, and it made it a little bit fluffier in a different sort of way. If you look at these two compared, this one's a little bit fuller. This one is going to have a pretty nice look. So I have a pattern going on here that I did lay out ahead of time and see if it worked. Orange, yellow, a colored one, yellow, colored one, yellow, colored one, yellow, colored one, or printed one, yellow, orange. So when I start this next segment right here, I'm going to start it off with orange, and then I'll do a yellow, and then a fabric one. Now, here's where things are going to get really interesting. I'm going to put this down here like this, and I'm going to show you how I loop this. So here we've got the inside ring. I'm going to take one orange piece of fabric, and I'm going to stick it from the back through the ring so that it looks like this. And I'm just going to tie it into a knot. Actually, let me flip that around. I did that from the back instead of from the front. Let's try this again. So we're going to go orange right here, pull that through, and then I'm just going to tie it into a knot. Doesn't matter how even your knot is, because you can fluff that all up. Tie that tight like that, and then I'm going to push it over to the end. Next, I'm going to do a yellow strip, and let me try to get a much clearer picture for you of what this looks like. So I'm going to put the yellow strip through the back like this, so that it kind of slipped over the ring. And then I'm just going to tie it into a knot. Push it over. And then I'm going to grab a pretty printed one. Pull that through, give that a tie and a knot, push it over. And then I'm going to do a yellow one next, and I'm going to continue until this wreath is completely finished. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit of a variation on this. For this red, white, and blue one, oh, I did get my white strips cut. For the red, white, and blue one, I did the strips a little bit shorter, so they're going to be flat. So let me show you what that's going to look like on my second wreath ring. I'm going to start in the inner ring here because I found that it's best to work from inner to outer. And I'm going to start off with a printed strip this time. And look, I'm just going to pull it through. And then I'm going to tie it into a knot. Now, these shorter ones, a little bit harder to tie into a knot. So be patient with Miss Kristy. So I can get this through here. You see here, I'm just tying this into a knot. And then I can move the fabric around and fix it up. Now, if you notice, this one is going to be a little bit flatter than the other one looked when it all comes together. So I'm going to take another strip here. Whoops, that's not a strip. Silly me. I'm going to take another strip. I'm going to use a red, white, and blue one this time. And I'm going to pull it through the back, tie it into a knot. Oh, these little strips are a pain, but it's going to be beautiful when it's all done. So I'm going to tie it into a knot. Maybe I'm going to tie it into a knot. Here we go. Pull it through and then straighten it out so that the fabric print is all coming around the same way. Slide it over until it all scrunches together very nicely. And this wreath is going to be red, white, and blue, and it's going to lay flat. Now, I want to show you two pictures that I took of some rag wreaths that my niece made at Christmas to give you a few more ideas for your wreath. All right, so let's take a look at the two that my niece made so that I can show you two different styles. This one is one of the shorter but same width pieces. Let me see if I can get this to, whoops. You can see it kind of lays a little bit flatter. And this one is one that she did for Valentine's Day. And what she did, instead of doing the rag tie all through the entire wreath, she took some thicker twine and looped it around to finish off the top of the wreath for a little bit of a difference. All right, so here is our next step. I would love it if you make this wreath, if you would share it with me. And you could do that in two different ways. As always, you can share your wreath project with us on Facebook or with me via email at kscrignoli@ccpa.net. I'm going to work on finishing my two wreaths. And as soon as I get them finished, I expect by the middle of next week, I'll have everything tied up. I'll take two pictures and I'll make sure that they get onto the library Facebook page so that you can check out my finished products. And of course, as always, especially as we're getting ready to reopen the library, very exciting, but be patient because we can only have a few people in there at one time. And there's only a few of us, and it's been a really long time since we've been in there. I want to remind you, today, I'm going to share my mask that has been washed and worn because it's my favorite one to wear when I go out, my sunflower mask. And I'm going to remind you, as always, when you go out to make sure you mask up because I want to see you in person really soon. Have a great weekend.